We had to dress up for the occasion, to try to sell ourselves.
I'm sure there were artists trying to sell themselves to galleries at that time by looking very much like the scruffy art student.
But we were the lower class country boys, and if you apply for a job, you put on a suit. If you go to a wedding or a christening, we did it very simple, like everyone does it. And I think that was very important. We always said also that we didn't want to be the artist with an artistic appearance with paint bespattered trousers and strange whiskers. We always said we want to be the artist that the mother wouldn't be ashamed of. It didn't work out exactly like that.
Yeah, there'd be elements that you wouldn't necessarily want to bring home to mother here, but we'll get to that. Why did you want to be such a famous artist? Why was that a desire so early on?
We had to succeed. We are poor people. We have to succeed. There is nothing else to do.
But there's succeed in order to earn money, but then there's succeed in order to be something else, to be
Not to
regarded
earn
as
money.
important
To
artists.
continue to be artists, yeah? It's very easy to remember that we were war babies. So when we were 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, everything was slightly damaged. People, houses, buildings, streets, institutions, traditions. But we all knew one thing, that things were going to get better. And they did. We live in a very, very privileged world now, compared with then.
You chose to live in London's East End. That's been central to who you are in your life for so many years now. Why there?
It was because it was cheap and it was extraordinary. It felt like what you call moving into a Dickens story. It was extraordinary. East End of London, where we live, 18th century houses, and full of trams, full of down and out, and a lot of artistic people at the same time, and a lot of, in fact, Jewish people from Russia. Atmosphere was just extraordinary, just brilliant, and it was cheap.
You couldn't afford to live anywhere else in London at that time. It was very, very cheap. And it was also filled with tens of thousands of damaged people, because there were 2 or 3 huge hostels, the Salvation Army, a Catholic one, and they were all people who were damaged, wandering the streets in great
Damaged
quantities.
homosexuals.
Servicemen, people who'd been damaged in the war and hadn't managed to figure out a new life. Extraordinary.
There's something about that character and about that pain, I guess, that's very stimulating to you as artists, isn't there?
We believe in being inspired by the pain of the world turning every day. Yeah. We always think of that.
We don't feel we have to invent anything, because it's all there. You just scratch the surface of East End of London, it's all there. We don't have to invent it. The powerful of living.
So there's an element of documentary, as it were, then, to your work?
We wouldn't say documentary. We don't think we're showing the world or reflecting the world. We prefer to think that we're in our own small way forming our tomorrows. Yeah? The world is very different from what it was in 1969, and we really believe in some small way we've been part of that change. Yeah?
Back then, in those early days in the East End, that's when you began making films and pictures and drawings. How did those early images extend the idea of the living sculpture?
We had to find a way of having art that we could leave behind. We couldn't just do the living sculpture in the gallery and then leave. That wouldn't be enough. So we tried, first of all, to write huge letters, we thought, like big visual love letters to the viewer. So we invented these charcoal on paper sculptures that would look like antique works of art.
Like you could find in some drawer somewhere, that we didn't want them to look like that, we did them.
We didn't want modern art, yeah?
Yes.
We wanted human art. And then we realized that people loved them so much, and we didn't like that. We didn't like that they loved the paper, they loved the charcoal. We wanted them to love what we were saying. So we abandoned the charcoal on paper, which were based on the negative image. We had images taken photographically and then copied it in charcoal, and did it actually directly, straight from the negative. And then people couldn't comment on the form.
But then we had to find a form that we were able to speak more than just standing still there. And that's why we started to find what we call the picture. For us, was very important to create big pictures. No? So we are able to include full of stuff. No? Any image we could include, no? Sexuality, religion, loneliness, unhappiness, drunkenness, or the fears of the world. So it became like a novel for us to speak.
Let's talk about Dirty Words, because that was such an important series, because it was the first time really that I'm aware of that graffiti was incorporated into art in the serious and considered way that you did.
They were extraordinary breakthrough for us. At that moment, we became for the first time not country boys, we became urbanized. It took us a long time to get away from the nature of our childhood. Even all the charcoal on paper sculptures were mostly leaves and trees, although we weren't surrounded by that. We didn't know how to deal with the city, to be a grown-up adult person. And with the Dirty Words pictures, we did that. We cracked through.
Yes.
Was it the words in the graffiti, or was it the graphic form of the graffiti as well?
I think it was the force, because it's not all of us who go out and write things on walls, and we think that somebody going out to write "shag you" or "fucked up" on the wall is a sort of creative force. It's like a poet. Not everybody writes poetry. That it's such a force inside the person that makes them go into the street and do that it is very interesting.
It's good that you say
We
that.
never did that ourselves.
Well, you never graffitied yourselves? No.
Not once.
Not yet.
This time? Well, I think your house has been graffitied by others, hasn't it?
Absolutely, that's true.
What did someone write on the front door of your house once?
Gilbert and George are tossers.
That's it.
But they even did a heart, scratched in a heart in our door.
Oh, recently they've scored a heart on our front door, yes. It's nice to be loved, but I prefer them not to deface the door.
What was the early reaction to that work, to Dirty Words?
I was extraordinary. A lot of, even our closest supporters, many of them thought that we'd gone over the top or being excessive or being rather silly.
They lost it.
Yeah, people said things like that. Yeah. But strangely, when they were shown 25 years later in their entirety for the first time, many of those people who'd had a problem with them were there to see them and saying how much they loved them. And when we said, "But don't you remember you had a bit of a problem with them all those years?" "Oh, no, we've always loved them." Which is very good proof that the picture stays still, the world changes.
You've never minded politics having a presence in your art.
We always think that art and culture should be in advance of politics in a free voting society. We're not party political.
Our politics is don't hurt your neighbor. That's about it.
Unless they like it, of course. We believe in the individual. We don't like collectivism. And naturally, we prefer conservative to Labour, yeah.
But
Unlike the artists.
Yes, the old art equals left dictum, I know, has always driven
We
me crazy.
dislike it very much.
We've suffered from that even, yeah.
What's the suffering been?
If you say you vote conservative to a taxi driver or a waiter
It's
or
fine.
a family member, it's fine, yeah. But if you say it in the art world, it's almost like
Committing
sacrilegious,
suicide.
yeah. We